Hey Crestwood, happy Wednesday to you guys. Hope everything is going well this week. Boy, I tell you, God is at work in our church, and I am so excited to see how that is happening. So much good stuff going on, a lot of connections being made, a lot of opportunities to serve God and to serve others. I hope you are a part of those, and there will be more as we move into September, into the fall. But what a blessing it is to be a part of such a vibrant church and to see God's fingerprints all over it. Hope you're doing well today. I'm honored to bring you this devotional for this Wednesday, September 18th. I'm thinking about perspective today. I saw my spiritual director yesterday. I hadn't seen her for a long time, and I realized it was time for me to start that process again. Spiritual direction is so important for me to continue to ground myself in God's presence with me, to have someone who can ask me tough but good questions about how I'm honoring my call to God, how I'm following God's lead, how I'm not doing that. It was just a great conversation. And one of the things that we reflected on was how different my life is now than it was 5 years ago. If you'd have told me 5 years ago that all that had happened in my life would happen, I would not have believed it. And yet when I look back, I can see God just at work through the whole process, guiding me and leading me to where God wanted me to be right here and right now. And one of the things I struggle with, if you know the Enneagram at all, I'm an Enneagram 3, which is the achiever. And one of the things I struggle with is stepping back and letting God work in my lives. I often think I know what's best. I know what the right decision is, and I will charge forward with a sense of urgency. And I think when I do that, my spiritual director helped me see that when I charge forward, I kind of knock God out of the way. I mean, God's not going to take over. God's going to give me the ability to use my free will. But if I don't wait and look for where God is leading me, and I just charge forward thinking I know what's best, oftentimes that's what gets me in trouble. Oftentimes that's where I have to take a break and realize, oh, yeah, this was about me. This was not about God. And the question she asked me, which I'm still wrestling with today, is where in my life am I allowing myself to be receptive to what God is doing? And I thought that was an interesting word, to be receptive to it. To receive something requires the slowing down. It requires looking around. It requires paying attention. And I don't know that I do that often enough. I think I'm always charging forward, doing the next thing. And either that's, physically doing it or even mentally in my brain, I'm thinking about what's next. And I'm not pausing to give myself that space. And yet with where I am now in life, there's more opportunities for me to do that. When I get up in the morning after Amy goes to school, I'll take the dogs to the dog park or for a walk and do a little reading. There is space there to be receptive to what God has to say to me. I don't know that I'm always listening though. And so the sermons I'm preaching in James are as much to myself as they are to anybody else. But the question I want to ask you today is, where in your life are you allowing yourself to be receptive to what God is doing? The prophet Jeremiah reminds us, God says, you know the plans I have for you. I have plans to do good things in your life. The psalmist reminds us, before we were formed in the womb, God knew us. Romans promises us that God is at work in everything to bring about good. The Bible is very clear that God is present with us all the time. And I believe God has a word to speak to us. The question is, are we listening? Are we giving ourselves the space to hear what that is? Are we filling it up with all these other things? That's been my downfall. I tend to fill up the empty space I have with the things that I think are important, or with distractions or other things that don't allow room for me to be receptive to what God is saying. So I want to encourage you today to simply pause and to think about where you can be receptive in your life. The times when I've done that, God has amazed me with opportunities far beyond what I could have even imagined. But when I haven't done that and I've charged forward myself, it's only in hindsight I realized that wasn't about God. That was all about me. So Crestwood, God has plans for you. God has a way to use you to accomplish God's will in this world and to continue working for God's kingdom. The question is, are you receptive to that? Like I said, God's not going to bully you and knock you out of the way and say, no, do it my way. God's going to give you the choice. We can choose to listen to God, be receptive to that, or we can continue to choose that we think we know what's best. But how's that worked out for us? Crestwood, I encourage you today, simply be receptive to what God has to say to you. You will be amazed at what you hear. God bless you, Crestwood.